If you're a high performer, you're not only at risk, you're the number one target. Toxic managers don't go after the weak. They go after the strongest person in the room and slowly convince them that they're the problem. And by the time you realize, it doesn't just stay at work, it follows you home. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how to escape this type of manager before they ruin you. Starting with number one, document behavior patterns. Toxic leaders thrive in ambiguity, and documenting behaviors turns vague gut feelings into undeniable proof. Now, it's important to understand that not every difficult manager is a toxic one. Some are just undertrained, overwhelmed, and doing the best they can with no real guidance. So here's the distinction. An untrained manager fumbles leadership, and a toxic one weaponizes it. They'll use hard conversations to assert dominance and induce shame. They'll withhold information on purpose to keep you off balance and dependent on them. And they don't miss your strengths. They see them clearly and actively work to minimize them so you don't become a threat, which is why you need to keep a private document on a personal device to track the inconsistencies. This is where you save emails, text receipts, and focus on patterns and not isolated moments. Like, are they constantly vague and then punish you for misunderstanding? Do they shift the blame when things go wrong, but they take all the credit when things go right? Are you getting mixed signals depending on who's in the room? Or did they make specific promises they never fulfilled on and then got combative with you when you asked? Your brain will normalize dysfunction if you're not documenting it. But the moment you see a pattern on paper, it's no longer personal, it's obvious. When you deal with a toxic manager, you end up working twice as hard just to manage their emotional volatility. You're not just doing the responsibilities of your job, you're managing their moods. And unfortunately, the more competent you are, the more they try to exploit it, which is why the next steps are crucial. Because if you don't draw the line, they won't stop crossing it, leading us into number two, stop overfunctioning. You need to set an internal boundary that you are not responsible for holding together what leadership keeps breaking. It's easy for you as a high performer to step in because you don't want the rest of the team to suffer the consequences. So you'd rather absorb the dysfunction than let it hit somebody with less capacity. But every time you do that, the real issue becomes harder to see. The more you compensate, the more invisible the dysfunction becomes. And eventually, it looks like you're just doing your job. You can't heal a dysfunctional system by overfunctioning inside of it, which is why you need to build your exit plan. Even if you're not ready to leave, prepare like you are. A toxic environment is more likely to change you than you are to change it. And depending how long that manager has been in the company, the deeper those rotted roots are. So set aside time on the weekend and do the following. Update your resume when you're clear-headed and not burnt out. Reconnect with people who have seen your work or old colleagues that might have connections. Save performance reviews, wins, and client praise in a folder to remind yourself what you're capable of. Power isn't just about knowing you can leave, it's knowing that you're prepared to. The goal here is to regain optionality so you're not at the mercy of somebody else's behavior. Because when you have no plan, you tolerate too much. And by the time you're forced to go, you might not recognize yourself anymore. Which brings us to identifying the root fear. The exit plan gives you options. This step gives you permission. You're not stuck because of logistics, you're stuck because of fear. The red flags are obvious, and you've said this is unsustainable more times than you can count. Plus, you're not naive. You know the way you and others are being treated is unfair at best and abusive at worst. The runway for you to leave is built, babe. But emotionally, you refuse to get on the plane. So I want you to grab a pen and paper and answer these 5 questions in order. 1. Why haven't I left yet? Write your first honest answer. 2. Why is that stopping me? When you write this, push one layer deeper. 3. What do I believe will happen if I leave? Be specific. Not might what happen, but what you are expecting to happen. 4. What emotion am I avoiding by staying? Is it fear, guilt, shame, loss of identity? You need to name it. And 5, if someone I love was in this situation, what would I tell them? Write it down in detail and then ask yourself, why don't I believe that I deserve the same? The reason you're doing this is because your nervous system will always choose what is familiar over freedom unless you intervene. It's the exact reason why people stay stuck in toxic environments and relationships for years. And it's not because they couldn't leave. It's because there's a part of them that's hoping that it'll still get better. And if it does, then they don't have to be the one that burns it down. But at some point, you have to stop holding on to what could have been and start protecting the future version of yourself. Which brings us here, leaving on your terms. You need to set a deadline and execute your transition plan. Lowering your standards and continuing to tolerate abuse is going to make you sick. It is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. You're never going to feel fully ready to leave, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you can't do it anyways. You've got too much potential to let a toxic manager convince you otherwise. And people like that don't just ruin morale. They shape the entire culture around their dysfunction. So mark the calendar with your final day and get it done. And if you want to understand how damage spreads through a team, watch this next video on the 21 behaviors that fuck workplace culture.